Welcome to Recording Music 101. And this video will be an overview of the terminology and the jobs that are often required for making a music recording. There are 6 basic elements of recording music. There's songwriting, producing and arranging, recording engineering, musical performances, mixing, and mastering. In the modern world, most bands and artists can't afford to hire a team of professionals, so one person may end up working on several or all of these elements. And here's a picture of a one-man band as an example of somebody trying to do too many things. With this in mind, it's important to understand each hat and what they can contribute to making a great recording. And there's a guy that's wearing all the hats. Songwriter, or songwriters, are the people who write the song, which is the melody and the lyrics and the chords. Chords can be substituted, so I'm going to highlight melody and lyrics, which I think are really the most important things in terms of songwriting. Songwriting is arguably the most important element of all the music recording jobs, because if the song is poorly written, even the best production and musical performances won't save it. And there's a picture of Frank Zappa with a pen and paper, and he's writing music, which is pretty cool. So producer/arranger, I've put these together into one thing because they're very tightly sort of knit together, I think, in general. So the term producer is subjective depending on the genre. Like in hip hop, we often call the person who creates the beat a producer, but there is also a more traditional meaning. The producer imagines how the song could sound, often utilizing pre-production, which is similar to pre-visualization when making a movie. And this can often involve recording a demo or a series of demos before starting the full production. The producer works out the song structure, tempo, the feel, if it's like straight or swing, musical style, the instrumentation, and when necessary, they communicate to the musicians specific parts they want them to play on their instruments. An arranger may be required to write a basic chord chart for the musicians, but depending on what the producer needs, the arranger's job can also include more complex orchestration like horn sections and strings, vocal harmonies, and things like that. Producers will often be arrangers as well, like Quincy Jones and George Martin, for example. But sometimes there are people who are not musically trained that can steer the direction of a recording based on intuition, like Rick Rubin. There's a picture of Quincy Jones. Looks like he's talking to session musicians. There's like a baritone sax there and some other kind of sax, like a tenor, I think. Long time ago, probably in the 70s. There's George Martin, and he's hanging out with the Beatles and working on some production there. And this is Rick Rubin in the studio with Tom Petty. Producers have also traditionally dealt with business administration, like the recording budget, scheduling studio time, and hiring musicians. So a recording engineer. They make sure the instruments and vocals are recorded cleanly, without distortion or noise, unless that's intentional, because sometimes you want that, and it makes it sound cool. But otherwise, you don't. They pilot the ship in terms of running and maintaining the equipment, pressing record and stop, and punching in takes when necessary so as to let the musicians perform and maintain creative momentum without too many technical delays. I went to school for recording engineering, and I've had over the years working in studios some problems where the computer wasn't working or something glitched out, and it was very embarrassing. So, you know, being a good engineer requires a lot of patience and resilience and the ability to perform under pressure, because when the whole band is just waiting for you to fix the problem, you know, they're all looking at you. They choose which microphones and other recording equipment to use for realizing the vision of the producer. And the producer may be involved with this too, and even the artists, you know, as they're trying different microphones to get the sound. But in general, the engineer is sort of, they're the people that are most into that usually. A modern recording system could be as simple as a computer, an audio interface, and a microphone. So you don't necessarily need a lot of expensive equipment. It's more of a creative choice. So here's a photo of a little setup. So you can see over here, there's like a laptop, there's some headphones, and here's this red thing is this audio interface, which is a Scarlett Solo, an older one, that only has one microphone input on it. Here's a microphone that's not actually hooked up to anything. Usually you have to connect the microphone into the interface, and they've got a little reflection filter behind it to stop it from sounding too echoey when they're recording. And Yeah, you can make music with a little setup like this. It's just, mic into the interface, into the computer, into the software, and you can record over and over again, layer tracks. You're doing it. Here's an example of a much larger audio interface. For example, if you're the band, you need to record everybody, like the bass and the guitar and the vocals and the drums. This has 8 microphone inputs, so you can record 8 microphones at the same time, and then rewind, and then record 8 more things. So for musicians, the musicians and vocalists are responsible for conveying the emotion of the song through their performance, so the listener will be engaged with the lyrics and/or melody. There are many famous recordings with slightly out-of-tune instruments or vocals, but these tracks always have an engaging feel in the performance which transcends the imperfections. Yeah, if you listen to music recorded, well, through all time, but in the 70s and 80s especially, before everything became, Pro Tools perfected, where, yeah, the bass is a little bit out of tune, or, the lead vocalist is like slightly off, but there's magic there. And here's just a picture of people in a studio, musicians in a circle, all looking at each other and recording together. It's pretty cool. So a mixing engineer decides the relational volume between the various instruments and vocals. So like, how loud is the voice compared to the guitar, or how loud is the guitar compared to the drums? And you have to compare everything to each other and get it so, the drums are the right volume in relation to the guitar and the bass and the voice and everything. They use tools like equalization, which is the boosting or cutting of audio frequencies to make an instrument or vocal sound brighter or more punchy, and compression, which is making the loudness of an instrument or vocal sound more even, to help the various elements of the recording blend together. They add effects like reverb and delay, which is kind of an echo, modulation, which is like chorus or phaser, flanger, saturation, which is tape effects or distortion, and automation, which is the changing of volume levels and effects parameters over time to add variation and to make the recording sound interesting. And there's a photo of Andrew Sheps, which is a famous mixing engineer. Mastering engineer listens to the final mix of the recording and decides what the overall sonic character should be by using equalization. And what I mean by the final mix is the mastering engineer traditionally, would get just the left and the right. So when you're wearing headphones, you've got the left side and the right side, and that's what the mix is. They're not going to be able to change the volume of the drums or anything like that. All they're doing is they listen to everything done, and then they're going to like shape it, make it brighter or more bassy, or change things in the mid-range and also make it loud, that kind of thing. They use a limiter to make the recording sound loud and clear without distortion. Again, distortion is subjective. Sometimes you want a bit of distortion, but not like in a bad way. Distortion could be many things. So they can utilize tools like saturation to liven up a dull mix, multi-band compression, separate compression settings for different areas of the frequency spectrum, because waveforms, a low waveform is really long in the air, and high frequencies are really fast and little. And so when you put that into a compressor that has a threshold sort of meter that when you hit that threshold, then the compressor engages and will then make the sound quieter. The lows tend to hit it first. So if you're putting a whole mix into a compressor, the low frequencies will tend to make the compressor turn on, but you might not want that depending on the sound you're going for. So multi-band compression, you can have the lows separate from the low mids and the high mids and the highs, so that your higher frequencies aren't going to be over compressed because the bass is triggering it to do that. They can use stereo widening or narrowing at certain frequencies. They can also utilize tools like de-essing, which is removing harshness from vocals or snare drums or cymbals, that kind of thing. Volume automation to add energy and excitement, where they'll literally go in and find a part of the song and just like turn it down a bit so it's not hitting the compressor as hard. And then once you get to like the chorus or like the big part where the sound is going to need to be more intense, then it gets louder there. And noise reduction, which is removing hiss or other things like clicks and pops, and if you're remastering an old record or something like that. They can add dither, which is a high-pitched sound above the human hearing range, to maintain sonic smoothness and detail when reducing the dynamic resolution of the digital audio from 24-bit or 32-bit down to 16-bit for distributing the recording to streaming sites. They create a final master audio file of the recording, ready for release for distribution, which is, downloads and streaming. And there's Bob Ludwig, who is a famous mastering engineer. He looks very happy. He's got a super cool setup there. It's like some kind of spaceship. So the point I'm trying to make is that each of these skills require time, dedication, and discipline to reach an expert level. If any one of these areas is deficient in a recording, it can make the difference between a lackluster track and a hit record. As a person who has often tried to wear all of these hats, I've learned that it can be invaluable to ask for a second opinion from people you trust. In a world with increasing isolation and the rise of AI, I think it's important to remember that there is something very special about human collaboration. All right, well, that's what I got for Recording Music 101. Hopefully you got something out of it. I guess it's mainly designed for beginners, but it's also a good reminder, if you've been doing this a long time, of things that you got to think about if you're trying to make a really great recording. So please like and subscribe and leave a comment if you love me or hate me. It's all good. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.